Hello, my name's Tuppence. I'm going to be using these moulds to create a bee sun catcher. This is the lid from the bee pot, but I only want to use the emblem of the bee on the inside of it. And these are pendant moulds, so I'm going to be making hexagons, and I need to use the largest one. Thank goodness I've got two, because I do need to make quite a lot of them. That's going to be the base of my sun catcher. I've got some colours, some orange and yellow resin dyes. I've got a black nail gel, a gold mica, and an interference mica too for the bee. I'm going to make everything out of UV resin. Of course you could use epoxy, but I've only got two of these and I need to make quite a few of the hexagons. So this is just going to be the quickest way for me to do it. Let me take that out of my cup so it's nice and clean. I'm using craft resin and I absolutely love this stuff. It's the same brand as I use for my epoxy. So I need to make quite a lot of these hexagons to create the cells, which is going to be the base of my sun catcher. And of course I want this to look like honeycomb, so I'm going to be using honey colours. That was a couple of drops of the yellow resin dye. That's from Let's Resin. And this is, I think this is from J Diction, and that's their orange resin dye. So I've just put a very tiny drop in there just to make this a nice rich honey colour. Get that all mixed in. I haven't got very much UV resin in there, so I don't want to add too many drops of pigment, otherwise that's just going to stop it from curing. Okay, I've just got my torch to pop some bubbles. This is also going to warm it up a little bit and it will make it slightly runnier, although it is pretty fluid anyway, this resin, so that I can get it into this very narrow channel around the outside. So I'm going to start by adding a little bit of resin and then I can spread that around with my stick. This is a really shallow mould. It does not take very much resin, but it is quite a narrow channel. So the spout on this silicone cup really is a help to try and get that in there. I'm going to especially concentrate on that post at the top to create the hole. I definitely don't want any bubbles in there, otherwise that's going to lead to gaps in the resin and that won't work. So I'm going to keep the back pretty flat, that way it should sit really nicely against the window or a wall or something. I'm going to go ahead and fill up the other side, then I'm going to put this underneath my dual-sided lamp for 3 minutes to cure. Now I can demold them. Let's take that one out, and as you can see they are pretty thin, but they are so pretty. I love this colour. So I'm going to be gluing them next to each other like that. I just need to make 7 more. Okay, I'm just demoulding the last of them. This one is a slightly different colour, as you can see. That is going to go in the centre. So here are all of the ones that I've made so far, all the same size. And then I've made a couple of smaller ones and I'm going to graduate them, so that I might put at the bottom. There is a slight variation in colour, so it looks a little bit like an ombre, and I think I might have those to dangle underneath. I'm not sure yet, so I've just got to work out how I want the pattern to be. I've got a rough idea in mind. So I'm just going to lay these out, see if I can figure out how I want this to go before I start to glue it together. There's a hole at the top here, so I want to make sure that is at the top on both of them. And then this is the lightest colour one, that's going to go in the middle. And I want ones on the other side. So there's a hole here too, and I might decide to use that one to hang it. So if I make sure that that is on the outer edge, and I do the same with this one as well, that gives me a choice of 2 places that I can hang this from. So I've got those on the outside, just add these to the bottom, and that is the centre of my beehive. It kind of looks like a flower. And then this one I think I will pop under here, and then these can dangle. There's a hole at the bottom there, I can always dangle these from it. I don't know if I like that or not, but anyway, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to work on my silicone mat to keep them all flat, and I'm going to use this UV bonding resin. I'm going to add some along this edge. There's a little bit there, get rid of that, and then just put the resin in a line along that edge. Spread that out. and then I can butt these up together. Just going to hold them, and then I can use this UV torch which comes in that kit to bond them. So I'm just going to hold this probably about 10 seconds or so, just enough to stick them together. Right, lift that up and see if it's stuck. Lovely. I will put them underneath my UV lamp once I've got a few of them done. So I'm working on the middle row. I just need to add the next one. Make sure the holes are on the outside. And then I can do exactly the same for this one. There's a little bit of overspill on some of them, so I'm just removing that. Make sure that I get a really good flat bond. Spread that UV resin out. And anything that drips down, it will not stick to this silicone mat, which is why I'm working on it. Hold those together and again expose that to the light. I've just got a little extra on the top, so I'm just going to remove that and then make sure that it's cured. Okay, just move that around, make sure that it's not sticking to the mat. And now I can do this one. Now this one I need to put some resin on two sides. So that was a big blob. I didn't really mean to put that much on. Just spread that out and remove that blob from the back. And then I can put that there. Okay, there's another little bit of overspill on there, so let me just take that off. I want them to have as much contact as possible. Make sure that is nicely tucked up in there, and again cure that. Almost done. Had to cure both sides, so that took a little longer. And there we go. I'm just wiping off any excess uncured resin on the back because I did have a rather large blob on that one. You don't need a lot. Okay, before I continue, I am going to put this underneath my lamp. I'm going to cure it for a couple of minutes and then I can carry on adding all the bits together. Right, that's the last one just getting cured in place now. I'm going to put this underneath my lamp for a little while and cure it. So I'm just going to flip that over and that still fits in my lamp. So I'll cure that for 3 minutes. I almost forgot that I wanted to add this. I'm going to make sure the hole is at the bottom. And then I can use this glue to stick that in place. Get rid of that little tiny bit. So it's going to make contact along two edges. So that's where I need to put the glue. And because this comes from the same mould, it's exactly the same depth as all the rest of them. So I can snug that up. It fits really nicely in there. I'm just going to take off some of the excess and then I can use my UV torch and just get that partially cured. All right, let's see if that is all set. Just lift that up. Got a little bit of uncured resin on the table and on the back of this, so I'll just wipe that off. I'm going to make sure that's cured under the lamp before I continue. I've got my honeycomb, now I want to work on the bee. I'm going to add a little bit of craft UV resin to my cup because I want to mix up some black. And to make it black, I'm going to use this nail gel polish. So I'm just going to add a dot into the cup. Then I can mix that through and see how deep of a colour I get. I prefer to use a nail gel to make black UV resin. It's designed to cure anyway, so if you dilute it in the resin, you can be sure that you get a nice deep colour and it is still going to cure on you. I needed a deeper colour, so I added a dot more to give me a nice deep black. Now I can use a very small nail brush to paint in the lines on the bee. There are some raised areas in the mould and I am just following those. I'm going to paint a little bit and then cure that in place, and I'm going to keep going until I get all of the lines in the bee. Okay, now that head's done, I can fill in the antenna. I've kind of created a dam so that that resin is not going to go anywhere I don't want it to. I'm going to carry on adding all the bits into the legs, the antenna and the body, and then once that's done I will pop this under the lamp. I'm going to cure it for 3 minutes. As you can see, I am being pretty careful about this, so I'm going to speed this process up for you. Just finishing the last little bit in the tail. This has only been cured using the UV torch, so I need to make sure that I pop this underneath my dual side lamp, and I'm going to cure this for 5 minutes. Okay, I've got a little bit of resin left over from making the hexagons, so I'm going to put that into a pot. I don't need very much, this is just for the body, so I'm going to add a little bit more UV resin to dilute it. And then I can add some of this gold mica powder. This is really glittery, so I just need a very tiny amount. That should be fine. Give that a mix around, see if I get the look that I'm after. Yep, that's a lovely shimmery gold colour, exactly what I want for the body. And now I don't need to be careful about this, I just need to fill up the body. So I'm going to add that in place. The black lines are already there, you're not going to see the gold behind them. I do just want to be careful that I don't flood this into the wings. They're going to be a different colour. So I'm not going to fill this up to the same level of the top of the lid. I can back that with a little bit of clear resin afterwards. So I've just got a tiny bit into the wings. I'm cleaning that out with my brush and I'm going to pop this under the lamp to cure. I'm going to do the wings now, and I want them to remain translucent and shimmery, almost not there. So I'm going to use some of this iridescent blue from Luminart. It's going to remain pretty translucent, very pale and milky, and it should have a nice blue sheen to it. A little bit of shimmer. You can just see that floating on the top. So I think that's enough. Let me just clean off this little stick, and then I can start to fill these up. This mould has lots of little channels in the wings which help to create the veins. So I'm going to use that very thin nail brush to paint the resin in there, chasing out any bubbles to make sure that nothing gets stuck into those veins. So I'm going to go ahead, and once I've filled this, it's going to go back under the lamp for a further 3 minutes. Now that the wings are in place, I can see that I needed to add a little bit more black to connect the legs to the rest of the body. So I just added that and then pop that back under the lamp to cure again. I've still got a little bit more room in there, so I'm just going to fill that up with some clear UV resin. I didn't want to add any more colour behind the wings, but this is going to level it out, bring everything up to the surface of that mould and give me a little bit more strength on the very thin pieces of the antennae and the legs. I'm going to put this underneath the lamp again, and I'm going to give this 5 minutes for a final cure, And while that is curing, I'm going to carry on working on the honeycomb. I've got the honeycomb on my mat. I'm going to place it face down so that the back is facing me, and I can cover it with this bezel tape. Now luckily, one strip of bezel tape just about covers the inside of the bezels. So I'm going to have to use 3 strips at least. I just want to make sure it's nice and straight. Try not to get too many wrinkles. I'm just going to adhere that around the edges of the frames. Once I've got that center strip in place, I need to add one above and below it. So I'm just putting the last one on now, making sure that it overlaps. There we go. And then I can press that down around the frames, make sure that it's really well stuck. Now I can lift this off the table. Just need to pull that up and I can flip it over. There we go. Bezel tape in place. Just try and tuck that over. Right. I'm just going to press down on the frames, make sure that I've got a really good bond and seal. So I'm going to fill these with UV resin and I don't want any leaks. Okay. Right, I've still got some of the UV resin that I used for the bee and the original UV resin. So I'm just going to add to that. Let me find my bottle. There we go. So I'm going to add a little bit more. And this is going to dilute that colour because I want it to be a little bit paler on the inside. I've also added a little bit more resin into the other pots so that I can mix up some more of the gold mica. So I'm going to add a tiny scoop into that. And that should give me enough to put some around the edges of the cells. Just get that mixed in. So pretty. Alright, that's fine. Now before I fill these, I want to pop this onto the plate from my curing machine, or my lamp, my UV lamp. So I'm just going to put that on. It just about fits. If I can tuck that over as well. And that way I'm not going to disturb it once I start to fill this up. Now I need a stick. Now let me get a clear one. I'll use this brush, that'll do. Right, let me just mix this up. Now I'm going to pour this into the centre of each cell. So I don't need very much, I just want to make a thin layer across all of them. The bezels aren't very deep. So I'm just going to add some in the middle. I definitely don't need very much in this one because I'm going to pop a clear layer on top. So I want to add the bee to that later. So it looks like I'm going to have to mix up some more resin, but that's okay. Right, I'm just going to use this brush now to spread this out so that it touches all of the sides. Okay, I need to mix up a little bit more resin to do the others, but for now that should be enough. So they are very thin coats, but I'm going to add some of this glittery mica around the edges. So I'm just going to use the brush to paint that in, and I'm not making a solid ring, I just want it to be sort of a little bit wispy around the sides. Okay, I'm going to cure these first. In the meantime, I'll mix up some more resin and then I can do the rest of them. Okay, that's all cured, but as you can see, it has warped a little bit. So I'm going to get my heat gun. I'm just going to try and heat that up and then I will hold it down flat until it cools down, and hopefully that's just going to take out some of the worst of that bending. And it's probably happened because a lot of UV resin will contract when you are curing it. I've got it on my mat and I've been holding it until it's cooled down, and it isn't completely flat, but it's made an awful lot of difference. And now hopefully I can finish this one off. It was a little bit rocky and I could not get this to fill up completely. So I'm just going to add the last little bit in, and I'll spread that out across the entire surface. And all I have to do is add the gold mica just around one edge, and then this is going to go underneath my lamp and I'll cure it. Now I'm ready to remove the bezel tape, so I'm going to do it really carefully. I have sped this up a little bit and hopefully I won't get any residue. This is my good bezel tape and I believe this one is from Let's Resin. So I'm just going to keep my hand flat on the back as I take the tape off. That way I shouldn't flex it because it is still pretty thin and I don't want to risk breaking anything. Right, just get the last one off, and so far so good, no bezel tape residue. Just take this last bit off. That's it. That's nice and clean. I just have two areas where I've got a little bit of overspill, but it's nothing much, so I'm going to try and remove this now with scissors. It is pretty thin. If I can't get it off with the scissors, then I'll just use a nail file. Okay, that is now nice and smooth and I haven't got any sharp edges. So at the moment this is still only being held by that UV bonding resin that I have between the frames. So I want to give the back a coat of UV resin, and that's going to add a little bit more strength. So I'm just going to put enough on the back to give it a pretty thin coat. I'm going to smooth that out with my fingers until it reaches the edges. And then of course it's going to have to go underneath my lamp to cure, and I'm going to pop this under for 5 minutes. Now I want to add the bee to the middle, and this has had plenty of time to cool down so I can take it out of the mould. Just need to pop it out carefully. There we go. I love this little bee. I've made it a couple of times for different projects, and this will fit perfectly in the middle. I left enough room to add a layer of UV resin, and this is what's going to hold the bee in place. Just take that brush and spread that out, make it nice and flat and even, all the way to the edge, and then I can put the bee on top. So the wings will touch the frame on either side and the feet should just lay in that resin pool. Okay, now I can top this up with a little bit more resin so that it raises up around the bee and it will hold it in place. And because the cell is made of a transparent colour, the UV light will still be able to shine up through the bottom and cure the resin behind the bee. So this is going to kind of look like fused glass. Just make sure that I haven't got any bubbles and smooth that out. And once I'm happy with this, I'm going to put this under the lamp and cure it for another 5 minutes. I almost forgot about the bottom cell. I added a little bit of bezel tape on the back. I've mixed the two micas together so that I've got a nice shimmery gold colour, and I'm going to fill this with that layer of resin. Now I can add a pressed flower into the middle. It's a pink daisy, and I'm going to pop this under the lamp to cure. I'm going to add a layer of clear UV resin to protect and seal in the flower. I'm applying it with a brush. That way I can make sure that I get rid of any bubbles that might come up from the centre of the flower. Once this is all coated, I'll pop this underneath my lamp for a final cure. Everything's all nicely cured. I just need to now add some jump rings so that I can hang this. I can either choose to put it in the top, or I'm going to put it on the second row. And because that bezel mould came with a ready-made hole, this is super simple. I'm just going to do up the jump rings. I'm going to reuse an old piece of wire that I took from a calendar. I'm going to wind it around this straw so that I get a kind of spring effect. This makes it look quite quirky, which I really like. Once I'm happy with that, I shall snip off the end, and there you go, I've got a spring. Right, now I can poke that through that jump ring. You could of course just put it straight through the hole, but it does tend to hang a little better if you use a jump ring. So now I'm just going to use my round nose pliers and curl that round so that it doesn't slip back out of the jump ring. keep folding it round to make it nice and safe. And then I just need to do the same on the other side. So here it is. It's all ready to hang up in a window or on a wall. I took an emblem from the lid and a couple of jewellery moulds and created something that is far bigger than the sum of its parts. So you can take tiny moulds and make them into much bigger things. I really do like this. I hope that you like this too. If you have, please go ahead, give me a thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't. It's free to you and it will really help my channel, and you'll be able to come back and see what I'm going to make next time. I'm going to leave you with some photos. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.